What do you think it means to be a person?
I don't know.
Me either, really.
Where does this go? No.
Say scratch that again.
Scratch that a fan.
I'm Caitlin Metz, a non-binary illustrator and designer.
I'm Rebecca Tossig, a disabled storyteller and writer.
And this is Scratch That, Parenting and Reparenting Off Script.
A podcast for people trying to parent and person at the same time.
Head over to our Patreon, Scratch That Podcast, for show notes and a transcript of today's episode, and also to join the conversation.
Thank you for being here. Hi, friends.
Happy Monday.
Hello.
You guys, today we have with us one of the most beloved couples on the internet. I don't feel like that's hyperbole.
Wow.
The real life Shane and Hannah Burcaw. This is not a trick. It's real. They're here with us and they're on the other side of the screen. We're so happy to have you guys here with us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
So excited to be here.
Most beloved couple on the internet.
Don't you think, though? I don't think that's too debatable. Okay.
I'm going to draw a little award. That's what the cover for this will be. Most beloved.
That sets the bar really high for this interview.
Yeah.
Now we have
So
to
beloved.
behave so belovedly.
I'm assuming that our people already know who you are and recognize their voices immediately, but you might also know them as Squirmy and Grubs from their absurdly popular YouTube channel. They've done a ton of work in the world of disability advocacy, and they've brought people into the real life, everyday moments of disability, and particularly, especially with their recent book, but also with their YouTube channel, kind of bringing people into interabled relationships. The new book that they had that just came out is called Interabled. I'm holding it reverently. True stories about love and disability from Squirmy and Grubs and other interabled couples. We'll talk about it more today, and we'll have a link for it in our show notes. But you both are, okay, I'm like, how do I introduce you with my genuine gushing heart without setting you up to feel like you need to perform? Funny and warm and doing 1,000,010 things every day. So thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
We really appreciate it. We're big fans as well, so it's an honor to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we like to start every interview by asking about little you. So here on Scratch That, we're really talking about reparenting ourselves, little people, both our children or children in general, our adult selves, how that intersects. So we would love to hear who were little Hannah and little Shane. And this is a little extra thing I'm going to add on to it. Which we'll talk about later, but I'm obsessed with you guys' humor and the chemistry that comes from that. And so I'm curious what role humor played in your childhoods, however you want to talk about that.
Great question. All right. Do you want to talk about little Hannah?
Oh,
Or
I
do you
don't know
want me
what
to talk about
say
little
about-
Shane?
You can Are
Yeah.
you ready?
I remember yesterday, literally yesterday, you remembered and said to me, I was such a pesky little kid.
Oh, yeah.
You were just like remembering that you were a pesky kid.
Yeah. Well, like that kind of goes into the role of humor because I was I was super shy, like a very, very shy kid, unless I was comfortable like with the people I was around.
Yeah.
And so for like 3rd to 6th grade, I was in a school where like the same 18 kids moved each year. So I was very comfortable. And that was what I was talking about is like, I was very much a class clown type, like pestering the teacher, trying to make people laugh, like, and thinking back, it's mortifying because I was so like interruptive. It was just like awful things, you know?
She would go to the classroom where they had a pet like guinea pig
Yeah.
each day, and she would get it and just bring it with her from class to class. Like not letting the teachers know.
Like the teacher who had the guinea pig knew I had the guinea pig. Like I was trusted with it. But like the teachers in the classes I took it to did not know. I would just have it like under the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what else? You were a swimmer.
Yes, I was a swimmer.
That was kind of the main.
Did that
Yeah.
since I was 5. I was a year-round like competitive swimmer, so that was probably the biggest part of my life. But I don't want it to come across that I was a bad kid because I was very well behaved, except for like a little bit of joking behavior.
To this day, is a rule follower through and through.
Yeah,
The
mostly.
fact that she took the guinea pig is shocking to me. It's because that teacher allowed it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to picture how this works. Like, how did you keep it from running and peeing? And
Oh, no, it was, like, a very calm it just liked to be petted, so it would sit in my lap
It
under the
wasn't
desk,
it
and I'd
wasn't
pet it.
alive. It was
Oh,
just
oh, the missing piece, a dead guinea pig. Oh, it all makes sense.
yeah, that's right.
I wonder how much better all children would learn if they just had a little warm creature to pet. Like, that was probably really soothing and grounding for you.
there's a reason I wanted the guinea pig. It was warm on my lap.
I feel
I
like
remember the feeling of the guinea pig.
and I think that's another kind of foundation of Hannah is, like, amazing with animals.
Yeah.
Every animal loves her. She loves
Obsessed
every
with
animal.
animals, yeah.
Obsessed with animals. So
So
that
that's why.
tracks, yeah.
Do you wanna talk about little Shane?
Little Shane. I'm, like, hesitant to call him a shithead.
Oh.
He was a little bit of it, like, he was a class clown as well. Also a rule follower. I think that's interesting about our dynamic. We were really,
Yeah.
like, wanted to make everyone laugh, but not in a way that would get us in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, one of my early memories, or a memory that I have from my parents is that I began learning how to use a powered wheelchair when I was 2 years old. So, like, straight up a baby. And at my preschool, I had, like, OTs and PTs come in to do these wheelchair lessons with me. And it was this really, like, simple wheelchair that had 4 directional arrows to, like, train a baby that you're gonna move yourself now. Um, and apparently, my favorite thing to do quickly became running into people, running into walls, just causing mayhem in whatever way I could. So that was, like, early me.
That makes sense, yeah.
Uh-huh. I can see it.
Mhm.
I was super, and this is true of Hannah as well, super communicative from a pretty young age. I had to be. And my parents did a really good job of instilling in me, like, autonomy and, like, communication skills to be able to explain to kids and adults why I used the wheelchair, basically. So I was very talkative.
Yeah. Early reader. I was gonna say, like, that going back to little Hannah, to give a fuller picture, I, one weekend, told my parents when I was, like, I think I was 4, that I was going to, like, learn to read a chapter, but, like, I wanted to read Harry Potter, essentially, and I was like, "I'm gonna learn to read it." So I went in my room alone for the whole weekend and read the Harry Potter book, and I came out being like, "I learned to read."
I learned to read.
So, like
Wait, when you were 4?
Mhm.
Caitlin, that is Charlie and Otto.
Yeah.
We're learning to read Mom and Dad.
But I was also but then I was like, "But I wanna read Harry Potter," like, 'cause, like, probably my mother was reading Harry Potter, like, I don't know why I picked that, but I was like, "I'm gonna read it."
Yeah.
And I decided that I would, and I feel like you were, like,
Yeah.
a reader.
That's so interesting. We are listening to Harry Potter. I have a 4.5-year-old, and he's obsessed. But now I'm like, maybe I should stop letting him listen to it and just hand him the books and be like, well, if you want Harry Potter, figure it out.
You also had the book on tape.
I did
That
have
was
the book
like
on I loved I loved
Oh, that
it.
probably helped. I wonder if, like,
Yeah.
okay, great. This is very informative. I'm going to take these. We'll see if we can get Charlie to learn to read.
I think the only other kind of, like, thing about my kind of growing up was that, and we don't have to get, I don't know how serious you want to get, but the early, like, youth of my life, I think, was marked by a desire to, like, hide my disability or minimize it as much as I could. I didn't have a great kind of love for myself, and I was embarrassed of my disability. Not embarrassed, like, I just knew what it made people do. I knew how it made people treat me, so I really wanted to be not disabled.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through in, like, some of the early writing I did, but I just like to say that because it shows that you can, like, grow and learn to love yourself, and it might happen later in life, but, yeah.
Mhm.
Shane, I really resonated. I felt like there were you didn't say that explicitly in this book, but I felt like some of the threads of that with like your burden complex also.
Yeah.
I just felt like this tether to you of that child with a disability, and I have that. So it's so deeply rooted in me.
Yeah.
And the way that you're describing like learning to be this super communicator, and part of that skill is being this way of like being able to maybe control the way people see you, and part of that is like I'm gonna make you see me as a human so that you don't look at this wheelchair and you're looking at me as a human, and trying to be seen as quote unquote normal. All of that I relate to so heavily.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder about this book that you just wrote. So I think I'm going to tee up this question. There's so many things I want to ask you that I feel like I'm like cramming 3 questions into one. But I'm thinking about a couple of things here. I'm thinking about little Hannah and little Shane that grew up and found each other and then started telling stories together through this medium of YouTube. And then this shift that you've made recently, and I know, Shane, you've also written other books, so it's not like a totally foreign medium, but thinking about as a couple, creating in this medium of YouTube and then shifting to a book. And not only a book that tells your story, but a book that welcomes like all of these beautiful, complicated, different range of interabled relationships. And I'm curious about what that shift in medium and that shift in process shift in who's included in that story has felt for you in creating content or stories around interabled relationships. I feel like I'm being unfair in how much I'm cramming into that question.
No, this is a great question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna let Hannah answer.
Oh my
Yeah, you have to.
Well, I mean, first, I think that like our YouTube videos very much led into the book, like the idea for the book, because we got so many comments that we still like get from people thinking that we are extremely unique. Like we're the only couple like us out
Yeah.
there. So they either like don't believe it or they're like, wow, this is so amazing. Like
Yeah.
whatever they, take away from it, they often think that we're like the only ones. So I think that was the main inspiration behind the book, is just like telling people like we're not that unique. Like
Yeah,
there's
we're
a
not-
lot of other people out there.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I agree. I think that also the making of YouTube videos began as a hobby. Like, we didn't set out to be disability advocates in the beginning. We're part of that community. We've always been, but like, we didn't set out with a mission.
Mhm.
We were just making silly little videos, and then once we blew up and began receiving kind of all this attention, much of which was negative, it kind of spurred our decision to have a mission and to make more message driven videos. And that ultimately, I think, worked its way into the book.
mhm.
Just another platform to help improve the way society understands disability.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question here? I'm picturing like you making these YouTube videos and getting all these comments that make it seem like you're so exceptional. Did you and then you open up this call for stories from people, right? Like inviting people to share their stories of interabled relationships. And I think it was something like you got like over 600 submissions in less than 24 hours or something.
Yeah, it was a crazy number. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
to turn off the form. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm curious if that surprised you. Like you were aware that you were not the only ones, but was there anything surprising, or did it shift your perspective at all? Not only to see so many people wanting to like tell their stories, but also to like sit with so many different stories. And I think you knew a lot of these people before. But I'm just curious about if what that felt like to you individually and as a couple to sit with so many different stories that actually have a lot of overlap with you.
The first reaction was, "Uh oh,
What have we done?
Yeah.
oh no, what have we done?"
Because then you have to go through all of the submissions and like pick out just 30 or so out of all the hundreds. So that was really hard.
I didn't. Yeah, when you asked about like how did we sit with that, like it was really difficult to take 600 incredible stories and have to narrow that down.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible. Like,
Yeah.
we could have swapped every chapter in this book for another great couple from our submission form.
hmm
And I think, yeah, it did change our perspectives. I think we hoped that we would get a good response, but deep down, we were worried that we might get like 10
Yeah. I
submissions.
mean, we
And
hoped we would get
yeah,
30 to like fill all the spots, right?
yeah. And it's interesting how you see the people that put themselves online, but you don't see everyone else. And like most people aren't documenting their lives in a, content creator kind of way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was eye opening in a good way.
hmm
Rebecca and I talk a lot about what is the value of us being online and why are we sharing things. And we both keep coming back to like representation. The internet was a place that I first started seeing queer people. It was where I was like, oh, you can be queer and you can be a parent. Oh, like it's where I found a lot of support around ADHD and neurodivergence. And so, what makes you keep showing up to tell your stories?
Shane, you mentioned, I mean, like a lot of the comments that you guys get are awful. Like you are confronting like some of the shittiest corners of the internet. And like reading some of them in the book, I've seen like you've documented them in other places, but like just like gathering them together in the book is just like kind of makes me hate humanity sometimes. And yet you keep sharing. It's so generous of you. And also no one would blame you if you were like, and we're done.
This is an ever evolving
Topic
topic for us.
for sure.
It's something that's at the forefront of daily life. We talk about it constantly. And we have periods where we're like, we're done. You know what? This is annoying, not worth it. But then we also have really amazing moments where like we hear stories from people that, whose lives we've improved in some way, or a couple that is together because they both watched our videos together.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of amazing and positive things that happen as well that kind of keep us going.
Yeah, what's funny is whenever we do anything in person, like we just did a book signing at the Abilities Expo, or like we've done things like that over the years. And after those, like on the car ride home, at least I think both of us, but we feel so like pumped about what we're doing. Like it's such a revitalizing thing to hear people be like,
Yeah.
I love your videos so much, and like actually see them, because we do get way more positive comments than negative, but like obviously the negative ones are very noticeable to
Once it
us.
stand out.
Yeah, so to have like people come up and like say how much they like our videos makes us, I think that's one of the things
Yeah.
that like always keeps us going, is that there are so many people that
Yeah.
do enjoy the videos. And then there's also the hope that like seeing like the people who leave the negative comments, like I'm hopeful that if they just keep seeing us pop up, or people that look like us, like, people of any like disability, interabled thing, like if they just keep seeing that enough, like maybe eventually it'll wear off and they'll just like stop
Yeah, like
saying horrible things.
exposure therapy.
Yeah, they'll be like, okay, like I guess this is actually a thing, like whatever. So I'm hopeful that like even if it's just our videos that get like all the hate, like maybe we can just kind of tire them out eventually.
And I think that like we've done a good job of protecting our mental health in recent years. In the beginning, it was the Wild West out there. We were just reading every comment and replying to trolls, and it was just like
Yeah.
a lot of anger and sadness. Nowadays, we have better systems where like because Hannah feels more emotionally like affected by it, she doesn't really read comments. Like I tend to give her the highlights. I try not to get into arguments with people online, like because it never ends well.
Yeah.
Things like that. Just like being careful about how we're interacting with the world.
Yeah. And that exposure therapy idea, I don't know. I think that there's something about that makes a lot of sense to me. Because I guess here's my next question. And I think there's maybe a lot of ways to think about this, but it is odd to me. And I feel this in a lot of arenas around disability and like misconceptions and like the stories written over our life experiences, where it's just like, how are so many people getting this so wrong or understanding this so inaccurately? or see this as such a fringe, rare experience. Like, how do people still think that? So I guess my question is, in part, like, you are experiencing the profound commonality, the prevalence, the ubiquitousness, the ubiquity of interabled relationships. And I'm curious if you have any theories as to why something that is so common, not only like for young people, but also just in if you want to stay partnered with someone in the long run, the chances that your relationship is going to include disability are very high, right? Like, this is a common experience. Caregiving in relationships is a common experience. Why do we still have such a massive roadblock in being able to see disability and romance or relationship as being coupled? Like, what is the huge roadblock there? Why is it so hard to understand? Do you have any theories? Have you hypothesized about that?
Mm,
That's a huge question.
yeah.
So whatever I'm about to say, take it with a grain of salt. But I think that part of it, there's probably a million parts to it, but part of it is that I think caregiving is still seen as sort of inherently a bad, negative thing to be avoided. Even though when we hear stories of a partner caring for their spouse through sickness and injury, whatever, it's said in a like, oh, they sacrificed, they did this hard bad thing because they love their partner.
Mhm.
It's not seen as
Like a
yeah,
normal part of a
they
relationship.
just hugged out.
Yeah.
So I think because we're saying publicly, caregiving is a great part of our relationship. It's not, and it's Hannah's not an angel. I'm not a burden to her. Like, it's just a nice, fun part of our life. People have a real hard time feeling like agreeing with that because they maybe saw their dad care for their mom near the end of, as they got older, and that was a bad thing in their family. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's part of it. We need to change the narrative that caregiving is a sacrifice that should be made.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting because I feel like if you're with a partner and then they like become injured, like become disabled, then there's a whole like that's so amazing that they stayed together. But like if you met them when they're disabled, like that's no longer that like then it's you shouldn't be together. Like why would you pick that person? Like
uh,
it's such an odd dynamic. Like I feel like we've talked about this so much of like why is it so?
I think, yeah, it's also a lack of experience with disability. Like, people think my life is so much worse than it is. So I think if they hung out with me for like a week and saw what my normal day-to-day life is like, a lot of those
Yeah.
negative beliefs about disability would disappear.
Which is why we make that content.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a flashback while you guys were talking. I got married when I was really young to my high school boyfriend, and I just had this flashback to one of the wedding speeches that someone gave, and in it, the groomsmen said something about like, most guys wouldn't stay or something like that, and I was like, I just like, and as a 22-year-old bride or whatever, I remember that, like, hitting and hurting and in this moment of, like, celebration, and then I kind of remember just, like, thinking, of course, like, the narrative of that is so prominent, and as someone who, like, knew nothing about disability as an identity, didn't know anything about disability pride or culture, it was just sort of like, "Oh, yeah, that's the lump that I need to swallow," like, because it's so deeply that narrative is so deeply ingrained, but what you are pointing to, Shane, is kind of like this larger narrative, not that we necessarily have about disability and relationships, but maybe even broader, like what we imagine a relationship at all to be. And that and maybe even broader than that of just like the high value we place as a culture on independence as like the end all be all. And like a very specific brand of independence because we all are all still like getting our food from farmers Uber Eats, right? Like we're not really independent, but there's a certain version of it that we like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The version that, like, can mow the lawn and,
Yeah.
cut the wood for the fire.
Yes, yes.
No, I think you're spot on there, and, that's a big recurring theme in the comments that we get, is, like, this view of relationships that's transactional in a purely physical sense,
And, like, gender
yeah,
roles
well,
and
yeah.
stereotypes for sure,
Yeah,
yeah, of,
yeah,
like, what you should be able to do for me,
and
you
it
know?
ignores all of the emotional and mental and, like, practical aspects of a relationship
Yeah.
that I don't know, that again, I think the reason why disability makes that relationship better, because I have to support Hannah in other ways. I'm not doing the dishes, I'm making her laugh while she's doing the dishes,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of closeness. Yeah, I don't remember what the question was.
Yes, yes, yes. But that was so apparent in this book. Like the value, the good disruption of disability as being like, oh, all those assumptions and like gender norms like deeply ingrained. Let's just like blow those up and figure out what we want to do for us.
Yeah.
Shane, when you started talking about like devaluing care work, today we just aired an episode with Laura Danger, who runs a podcast all about like domestic care, and how deeply devalued it is, and how gendered. There's something here about the way people are so pissed off about you two's care in your relationship, and the way that we devalue people who give care. Like, as parents, like, once a, like, birthing body, someone presumed to be a woman, has a kid, like, their role and the things that they're responsible for suddenly, like, lowers them in their in the hierarchy of what they're valued for or their contribution to society. This is all muddled, but I think there's something, like, there's an intersection here between, like, disability and care and just, like, care in general.
I agree, and I think that's probably why the caregiving crisis or the landscape of caregiving is so bad out there, because it's a frowned upon kind of, not frowned upon, it's a profession that, like, doesn't get a lot of respect. Um,
Yeah, that's so interesting because we get like, one of the main comments we get is that I'm, like, giving up my life for Shane, like, why would she be in this relationship ruining her life? Like, that's just, like, one of the most common things we get, and I think that's interesting because they're just, like, that's straight up saying, like, being a caregiver is
is
ruining
life
your
ruining,
life,
yeah.
and, like, I never even, like, thought to dissect that and be like, "Why do you think?" I mean, I know, obviously, like, I disagree with that, and, like, we'll just be like but I've never really thought about it in the caregiving sense. I've
Yeah,
always thought about it in, like, the disability sense,
yeah.
like, being with Shane, because I think disabled people are worth less than a non-disabled partner, you know?
Like,
But
if you were just working for a disabled person,
yeah.
like, and that was your daily life, would they frown upon
Well,
that?
true. Well, like, probably a little bit,
A
but
little bit.
probably less than if it's my husband.
But it would be in a more like,
She's
"Oh, it's
making
so
money,
nice
like
of you to, like, do that
yeah.
as your job, that sad job." You know? Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
interesting.
It's making me think also, have you either of you read Sarah Hendren's book, What Can a Body Do?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's really like flipping the script on a lot of default narratives that we have around disability. But one of the things that I think her oldest son has Down syndrome. And one of the things I've heard her talk about is how culturally we have a really a strong aversion to holding any sort of obligation to another person, like the idea that you would be obligated or that you would be tethered to caring for someone. This comes up for her a lot with people being critical of her for having more children. So her oldest son has Down syndrome, and people have said like, how unfair of you to have more children because they're going to be burdened by his caring for him in the future. And her argument is like, um, culturally, there's so much harm done when we view the obligation to care for someone as a negative thing, that like there is something of tremendous, like the obligation or duty to other humans is actually good for society, that we would foster those values is actually benefiting us as communities, that we are beholden to each other, that we are tethered to other people that require care. That is not a bad thing. That's a valuable thing, which is such a, I don't know, it makes me curious about other cultures. It seems like a very American thing that we would see that as like, oh, they're being weighted down, as opposed to like, oh, they will there is value in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, similar but different. We have talked a little bit about how we are like totally codependent on each other, and that's usually seen as a negative thing. But for us, it's like our favorite thing about our relationship. That like even now we feel like such a strong
Desire to
urge
be
to
together.
be near each other and
Yeah.
like to do everything together.
Yeah.
People think that's a bad thing, and we should.
Doesn't feel like a bad
Feels
thing.
like a great thing. I feel lucky.
Well, also, I was going to say, this is kind of changing the subject, but very similar, like, reception in society is we, a couple years ago, bought a house with my parents.
Mm.
Like, after the pandemic, we were like, why are we living 15 minutes apart? Like, this doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
we visit you every day. Why
Yeah,
are we
like, why are we? So we wanted to spend our winters away. So, like, it just fit our life perfectly to be like, we're going to live with them in Minnesota, and then someone can be at our house, and like, we can leave, we travel a lot, whatever. But we got a lot of comments being like people thinking it was a step backwards. Like,
Mhm.
they need to live with her parents because of his disability, like whatever, idea they had, it was just not really
Yeah.
welcome. And I feel like in other cultures, it's obviously very much a normal thing to live with other people.
Yes, yes. And you know what it's making me all think of is like, oh, suddenly we're like, why are we in a loneliness pandemic? Everyone's so lonely in in US communities, and it's like, so we don't want to be obligated to anyone or anything, and we can't live with other people. Why are we so lonely? I don't know.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Well, and it's like there's this one very specific way that it's supposed to look like. Like, you're supposed to, like, move out, you're supposed to find someone, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have a kid, you're supposed to have your own house, and it doesn't take into account for any of the peculiarities or personal needs or things, which is something that this is like maybe a little shift, but in reading the book, in the interviews that you guys had with other couples, the question of like what makes a good relationship or a strong one, it was like almost everyone was like communication. And what that question, when you like went into it, what I was hearing was non-assumption, like being really direct and honest about what we need or want or what feels good to us specifically versus what are the defaults, what are the assumptions. And that feels like this gift of disability. And this feels like something that I talk about in like queer spaces where it's like that too disrupts this like one path and like forces you to have to just talk, to not assume, to not presume that you know exactly who's going to do the dishes or like who does,
Or like, just to add on to it, sorry, I love the way you guys talk about sex in this book. And you bring that up specifically in that chapter about like the assumptions about like what sex should look like and how we will have it. And that like queerness brings, and disability both are like, actually, what are the other ways to experience this? What do we want? What feels good to you? Like that being the premise, as opposed to like, we already know what this looks like and how we do it. And anyways, so I don't know if you guys want to speak more to some of the gifts of it, or how you experience that sort of like disruption and what it brings your relationship to have some of those assumptions disrupted.
yes, that's the question. Like, how does disruption, like, what is the gift of that in a relationship?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
This just makes me think, we just recently, we did a speaking engagement in Seattle, and a couple came up to us afterwards, and they were both non-disabled. And it was a husband and wife. And I think he was like, I like have no experience with disability before this. Like your videos have been like my first exposure. And it's made such a big difference in my relationship with my wife. Like our relationship has totally transformed based on the things that we've heard you talking about.
Yeah.
And which was so like crazy and really nice to
Yeah.
hear, because we have talked about this a lot. I do feel like the fact that we just like had to talk about things and tailor things to how they'll work perfectly for us
Yeah.
was such a gift,
Yep.
versus just the assumptions.
I remember, like, just a small story. When Hannah came to visit me in Pennsylvania for the first time, we met online. We were 1,000 miles apart. And for like 2.5 months, 3 months,
2 months.
2 months,
I feel like I've told you that it was 2 months like on the day. I feel like you should know that by
2
now.
months on the
I've
day,
said it so many times.
2 months on the day, Hannah came to visit. Uh, and like our first moment of like intimacy, I was like, okay, do you want to like lay and watch a movie together? Like, cute, cuddle, whatever. Sure, that's adorable. All right, well, you're gonna have to lift me,
Yeah.
like, and I'm gonna have to now teach you how to lift me. That is such a thing that like people that don't have experience with it might view that moment as like she had to like do all like learn to pick him up. Like that's weird, but for us, it was this hilarious, like cute moment where I'm like describing how to lift me and she's not wanting to hurt me.
Yeah.
So she's like being real careful and just like a cute, lovely moment that, is so far outside the realm of what people think a relationship should
Yeah.
look like.
And just in like day-to-day life, the household chores that we split.
Mhm.
I feel like if couples really sat down and talked about what they prefer to do, like they could be a little bit happier versus
Yeah.
like what they're
Assigned by
assigned
society.
to do. Yeah, exactly. Because like I prefer, like I don't mind taking out the trash cans. I'm not making a phone call and I'm not paying a bill. Like this worked really well for us.
Yeah. I also think it has a downside, and that is we are both so uber focused on like what the other one wants
Mm.
that like we can't decide what to order for dinner.
Well, that's the
Like,
biggest
it's
problem.
like, what do you want,
The
Hannah?
dinner problem
So
is a huge issue. We'll fight. We'll be like, just say what you want.
I say I am not assuming anything that you want. Tell me.
It's so annoying.
That is a consistent fight over here.
Yeah.
But of all the fights to have, I think we could. I don't know. It's making me think. Okay, so we talk a lot on this podcast about like script writing and the default scripts we inherit and how we write our own scripts for ourselves. And like the way you're talking about this is like you are sort of. I'm literally like picturing the screenplay of the romance moment where you're teaching Hannah how to lift you, right? Like you're writing a new script for a love story. You're writing a new script for domestic partnership. And what's striking me, and this is maybe kind of going back to an earlier part of the conversation, but it's striking me how you are writing this script and then you're sharing that with this enormous audience. And then there's so many people in that audience that are projecting their script back onto you, right? And they're like, this doesn't fit the script, and this is why that makes me so angry. And you even said at one part in the book, I think I loved this line so much. You said, I think it was actually in the chapter where you're talking about poop, which I loved. Like, yes, let's talk about poop. But you were, it was sort of like thinking about all of the care work and how that fits into romance. And you said, it's very simple. The image of us as perceived by strangers has no influence whatsoever on the reality of our situation. Telling a squirrel it's a rabbit does not make it a rabbit. And I felt really emotional reading that because, I mean, my audience and what I share online is so much smaller than you guys. But, and even when I'm just out in the world with my son, like I'm so aware of the scripts that people write over me. And I do not have hundreds of thousands of comments happening. And I think about the script writing that our audience is doing and how many of them would relate to that feeling of like, we're living in this script we're writing. This is our reality. This is true. And then there are these other stories that come on to us. And I'm just wondering, how do you hold on to yourselves without letting that voice, those scripts, those narratives like infiltrate this thing that you're building? How has that been for you?
Well, like my first thought is that just that idea alone is something that we use to feel better. Like I'll read a comment and I'll be like, well, they are wrong. Like I know what is true.
Yeah.
like, I know that our relationship is this, and the fact that they're saying something else, like, it literally does not. It's just wrong.
And sometimes it's so like, oftentimes it's so wrong that we derive humor out of it. Like,
Yeah.
well, like they write us an essay about reasons why our relationship is bad. None of them are true.
Yeah.
They've just made them up. And it's a little bit funny that that person spent 20 minutes just being wrong, 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 like, and telling the world about it.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I think it's been sort of a lifelong process for me, like that exact thing that you're talking about, people putting their scripts onto you is the kind of thing that I struggled with when I was younger. So like a memory I have is being at the beach with my family for family vacation. And I know that like my ribs look different than average rib cage. And I have skinny arms and stuff like that. So I, like, refused to take off my clothes on, like, our schedule was, like, go to the beach for the day, every day, and I wouldn't, like, play, I didn't wanna go in the ocean because I didn't want people, like, seeing me, I didn't wanna look and see their, like, sad faces, I didn't wanna deal with, like, comments to my parents about, "What's wrong with him?" Which would happen all the time. So I just, like, went inside myself and didn't enjoy the beach. I kind of for a while, like, hated going to the beach or going to public pools because I just didn't wanna be that kind of spectacle. Um so, growing up, it was a very long and something I still, like, work on today when I'm in those moments, just reminding myself, like, what people are imagining about me right now isn't true. Like, I know what's true, I know my life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'll also say, I feel like how we keep the other people's scripts from like infiltrating ours. I feel like both of us, like when I look at me growing up, I've never really let like society's scripts determine what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I in 10th grade, I decided that I didn't want to do high school anymore because I didn't like my school. So I homeschooled the last 2 years of high school.
She
Like
was
I
just
just
like
told my mom, I was
she was
like,
like, "This is dumb, I'm
just
not
I'm
doing it."
I'm gonna homeschool and like I found a couple of programs like I'm gonna join these like in-person classes and like that's what I'm doing and that's what we did. So like I feel like just naturally I'm very much like I don't really care about whatever I'm supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
And so and like I feel like you grew up working on that at least and then just like not caring.
Yeah, I mean, the lifelong accumulation of that struggle for me is just that, like, I have a thick skin
Yeah.
today, like, really nothing bothers me, it's, like, almost to a fault, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. I'm like
you
feel
should
it.
care a little bit more about what people think. Uh,
A
just
tiny
a
bit.
1%,
Tiny bit.
but yeah, the outcome of all that is I just don't care anymore, like,
Yeah.
and that helps, I think it's a very useful tool for me, being able to, like, turn on the apathy.
True.
Yeah. Okay, I'm curious because Shane, the way you describe that really resonates with me as someone who's been visibly disabled since I was a tiny, tiny person. Um, and Hannah, I like that you already had that. It's cool to hear. And I'm like, I just want to meet little Hannah and who this person was with the gerbil and her homeschooling. But like, I'm curious if there was any sort of learning curve for you in having, because Shane was so used to the outside gaze immediately being like, what's wrong with him? And whatever, the pity gaze. Was there a learning curve with you for you in kind of being lumped into that kind of gaze?
Mhm.
It's making me laugh because we have so many stories.
Like, which well, I mean,
Just like
like, first of all, absolutely. I remember the first time we went, I think you might have visited me in Minnesota the first time, and we went to the Mall of America, and, like, we were walking around the mall together, and everyone stares at Shane when he goes by, and I remember being so uncomfortable. Like, I didn't know if I should, like, glare at them or, like, not
yeah.
look, like, just try to pretend like, not look at anybody, like, I didn't know what to do with myself because I was like, "This is so uncomfortable." And, like, obviously now I don't notice it, or if someone's staring, like, I will stare back or I, like, don't care. But there was definitely a learning curve. But what stories are you thinking of? Like,
Well, there's no,
the
we don't
woman
have
who
to tell.
cried?
Yeah, the woman that cried was a good one. I mean, we've had a few criers.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was thinking of the one where Hannah ate edibles and then someone asked if you were her son. I was thinking of that one. You're
That
like,
was the person that asked if what she said was, "Can I talk to your son?" That's what she
"Oh, no."
said. And it was like, I can't describe, like, it was a literal, like,
It was a
witch.
witch. I think it was a witch,
Like, I think
but not a
maybe it was
witch.
just in my mind, but, like, a witch in,
Like
like,
something,
long robes, like, long gray hair,
something
like,
that lived in a mountain in Lord of the
yeah,
Rings.
like,
Like,
unbelievable on the city streets. Like, I didn't understand,
Oh
like,
my
the odds
gosh.
of that happening.
Oh my
and you were
gosh.
so beyond high.
It was
Like,
cool.
it was not working for your brain.
It was cool.
Oh my
I think
god.
it, like, especially in the beginning, we had all these encounters that happened to me all the time. People coming up and preying on me against my will, or
People
people,
hearing that we're dating and, like, this was a specific woman, she started to cry
yeah,
because it was so beautiful. She couldn't believe that I was his girlfriend.
yeah. So like, I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but like when those interactions happen, we mostly let them happen, and then we try to be friendly as we can, and then when they leave, we laugh about it together.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we're usually just pleased that we have a funny story.
yeah,
We're like, "Well, that was fun."
we're like, oh, we can't wait to tell everyone.
Well, you know what that makes me think as you're talking is like, I wonder how much the telling of the story is part of the reclaiming and
Mhm.
like taking the power and and being in charge of the script. Um,
Yeah,
I think so much about that movie, that kids movie, Inside Out with the memories. I'm always talking about that. You know that movie where
uh-huh.
and it's almost like the memory comes down and that other person is, like, trying to make it into a sad moment, and you guys come in and you're like, "We are we are recreating this memory, and now it is funny, and we're the ones in charge of
Yeah,
it."
Yeah.
Like, the act of storytelling with the humor, that superpower you have of, like, your levity. I think there was another quote in the book where you said, like, "It was funny because we made it so." And I loved that
no,
line.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And something that we talk about often is like when we have a bad experience or we have some inaccessibility issue or whatever, our first reaction is usually like, "This is gonna be a great video."
Yeah.
Like, "It sucks right now, but it's gonna be a good video."
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and I think that is a tool that we use because we know, like, this bad life event has value, it will have value
Yeah.
in the way that it will make other people fired up or angry or laugh or whatever it is.
Mhm. For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and the ability to make it funny. It was funny because we made it so. Like, that feels like such a defining part of what I experience in you is like just this. It reminds me of the word scrappy too, of that, like the scrappiness that is like grabbing that story by the throat and just like making it funny. You can make anything funny.
But it also doesn't feel like you're discounting. I
No.
think there's, like, sometimes people, like, do this Pollyanna thing, and that is so not what I get from you guys. You're just like, you are so steady in who you are, and you're like, "Fuck this shit," and just make it you take ownership of it without pretending that it didn't suck and that stuff isn't hard, and then you're, like, using that. I think humor is such a powerful tool to enact change because it's so disarming. It's such a bonding thing, and when you are laughing or finding humor, like, you're moving yourself out of a trauma state, like, you can't engage in that kind of play if you're, like, traumatized. So it's, like, such an amazing tool just for, like, regulating yourself,
Yeah.
and then a way to connect with other people without pretending that the shit isn't so fucked up.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that. That's, like, our favorite take on our what we do. It
Yeah.
really frustrates us when people say, I wish you wouldn't just sugarcoat everything, like, not everything's a joke," stuff like that. It's like, we know that, that's not
That was like when Shane fell off of our ramp once and like, he slid off and, like, literally almost died, like, 1 inch away from death.
I was shouting, "Please don't let me die."
Yeah, and my mom and I rescued him, and it was all fine, but we told the story, and I laughed, like, at part of it. Like, I think you were, like,
We were both
describing
laughing, I mean,
how you flipped off the ramp, like, you said some, like, weird description, and I laughed, and there were so many comments being
yeah.
like, "She thinks it's funny that he almost died," like, she died. I'm like, do people not
Yeah.
laugh about, like, things that happen?
Well, I think we do know that a good number of people
That's
don't
true.
have a sense of humor,
That's true.
which I feel like that is such a tool. You're right.
Yeah.
And I think it is a bit jarring for some people when they come to our page and we're like, this restaurant didn't have a ramp, ha. Like, not that, obviously, but yeah, I think it disarms people.
Yeah.
It makes them realize we're just
Some
human.
people get it.
Some people
don't.
don't. Yeah.
Well, I think that I like that you underscored that, Caitlin, because I think that that is almost a superpower to be able to hold on to the both and of those moments. I mean, because I'm even thinking about like the TSA pre-check story that you told of like the getting like the grueling attempt to like even get in the room, let alone get the fingerprints, and like how you told that story with like there it's like the genuine LOL next to the genuine heartbreak ache, and to couple those together feels like the heart of life. And also, like, it seems like most people can only do one or the other. And it's really hard to hold on to both. And you do that so well.
Thank you. I think it's the reason why we feel so happy to be codependent with each other.
It
You know,
works.
'cause
We
that's just like,
match up that
that's just
way.
how we process the world, and
Yeah.
it's very it's a good thing that we both handle it that way. It would not work if one of us didn't handle it that way.
For sure.
I know I mentioned in my email that we were curious about to talk with you about IVF. I was so struck by that chapter. That's the last chapter of your book where you tell that part of the journey. And I felt such heartache as you brought us through the roller coaster of that experience. And of course, there was like the humor in it as well. You know, like the fresh samples and the fishy swimmers and all of that. You know, like there was plenty of you bringing us into moments of laughter, but like the ache of that felt real. And I guess I'm just wondering. You know, I think about as partners those life events that we go through that can be kind of big shifting points in a relationship or like defining points. I'm thinking like my partner Micah was diagnosed with cancer in 2020, and just like it's one of those, you have only so many of those. I think most of us only have so many of those as couples, of like these big life experiences. I'm wondering if you could speak to what that is, how that has impacted you as individuals and as a couple. Like, what if there are words that you have to describe the impact of that stretch of experiences for you?
I think it strengthened our love for one another. Because like at the end of the first attempt and it didn't work, we had each other, and there was a lot of like, let's take time. Like we were so laser focused on this IVF process for like a year and a half, however long it ended up being. That after it was like,
Yeah, it was like a full
oh
year.
wow, we can like go to dinner tonight and not think about a fresh sample being collected tomorrow, you know, or like whatever horrible news or appointment might be around the corner.
Yeah.
It was just like nice to focus on ourselves for a bit.
Yeah. I also feel like because we haven't, like, we left the book off. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but like, I mean, obviously, the IVF round like didn't work, and then we haven't since then really made any like moves or decisions. We've just been like in the same place with that, and like every once in a while, we'll discuss like, do we want to have kids? Like, do we want to try again? Like, what would that look like? That kind of a thing. So I feel like I'm not even sure what my answer is because it doesn't feel like it's done.
It
Like, I'm
doesn't
just
feel
like,
over it.
we
Yeah.
didn't like close it. So I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think, okay, maybe I'm wrong. I think when it failed officially, it felt over. Like it felt like, oh my god, this is a failure. It's not in the hearts for us. Like now we are at a point, you know, a year or two removed, where we're still like, well, we should try again. We should like,
Yeah.
you know, if we want to, if not, oh well.
Yeah.
Like we're very much in the phase right now of like, we are really enjoying life without children.
Yeah.
And we knew it then, but we really know it now that like we have to be like on board. Like
Yeah.
we have to be like, let's do this. You know, we're not gonna go into it lightly.
Yeah.
and we're just enjoying life. And I think that's like the good part. And maybe it's something for others who are going through it to realize is that like it might feel like if it doesn't work that you're not going to be able to be like happy or whatever, but y- we are. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like we got through it and we're happy again.
Yeah. 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 I love that. That like so you like have this intense year where you're focused on this like potential future that you're moving toward, and then when you put a pause on that, coming back to each other and not feeling a lack but feeling a joyfulness in the life that you have right now. And the way you describe that, Shane, with like the relief that we get to just go to dinner.
Yeah.
And I
For like 6 months after the failure, we would often be watching a movie at night at like 11 p.m. and we would just say out loud, "Can you imagine if there was a baby like
Crying and
eating us
interrupting
right
us.
now?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah, we'd be going to bed and we'd be like, imagine if we weren't gonna sleep through the night.
what were we thinking?
Yeah, so that helps. Yeah. We would just
No.
and it was like our hypothetical baby was the worst baby ever.
well, and I also like the way that you talk about that, like it felt like it was over, and then with a little bit of more distance, you're like, there are so many options, so many paths, and I think we can get really locked in into feeling like this one way and this one time is the only thing, and l- if we can allow ourselves to be open to trying again or trying a different way or imagining parenting in a different way, like all the different options, it feels like a beautiful picture too um for us, for our listeners to
Yeah.
be thinking
I
about.
think, yeah, it's something that I really love about us is that like however life goes, we figure out how to do it together.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? In a way that we're happy.
Really good pivoters. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're adapters. Yeah.
Adapters. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's this like trickster energy that we love to talk about. Rebecca kind of talks about it in the scrappy term. I've like really clung to the like trickster card in tarot. And it's for me, like Liz Gilbert talks about it as stubborn gladness. And it's just like this insistence on joy and like not pretending like it isn't hard, but also being like, I'm not going to get stuck here. Like, I will slither and move and pivot and adapt, and like I will find
Yeah.
the light. And it feels like a really incredible act of resistance.
We did an interview recently and we were talking about like mean comments and how we deal with them. And I said that I like will read something and I'll like I don't want to let those people into our home, like, like mess up my peace in my home.
Yeah.
So I'll like be like stubbornly happy in my own home and not let the comments. And I think the interviewer was like, so like angry happy. And I was like, yeah, angrily happy. Like I'm going to be happy regardless.
Spitefully
having a great time. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. You guys, I really love talking with you.
This has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I feel like I'm like, how soon is too soon to invite them back?
So, hope you've been thinking about it.
Oh, shit. Like, do you have one?
No.
Are we doing one together or just?
I think that would be easier.
So the question is, what is a song that has held you or is like a North Star or that you come back to either as a couple or as individuals? And it can be like light and silly. It does not have to be serious.
A song that has held us that we come back to.
I was literally gonna just name a song I've been like.
This is the problem. Shane doesn't put any weight.
Yeah.
No, Shane doesn't put any weight behind the things he says. I'm serious. Like you genuinely, people will be like, "What's your favorite movie?" And you'll just name a movie, and I will be like, "I am sorry, I can't answer that question." Like I take that extremely seriously, and I would need to think about it for a really long time.
Oh, and we don't have to do this question.
No,
we will. I'm just saying this is like Shane's just gonna list. He's gonna list the last song that was played. And
Literally. Well, okay.
It has to be a song like a real one.
I did leave all this in. This is a great, authentic look into how we talk to each other. I would have said before I was told I was not allowed to say this that recently I've been loving a song called "Fortune Teller" by Sea Lemon. And it's just
That's
super.
you just heard it.
I know. But I find a new song and I get really like, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
I listen to it way too much, and then I move on to a new one. Right now, that song is bringing me great joy. Oh, I could say all that. I should say all that.
That's not something that holds you.
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, the horrible song about the dying is one that you come back to,
Oh,
but let's not put that on the playlist.
No, let's put that on the.
Which one is that?
What is it?
It's called "Get Better" by Alt J, and it's a super sad song about a guy whose
Oh,
wife passes,
yes, it's
and he's just remembering
so sad.
little moments about her. Alt J is incredible. Like their writing is amazing, but that song really makes me cry. I don't cry super easily. That song will make me
He'll
cry.
put the song on and cry to it. Like, I don't understand
Shane.
to do that.
Around, I should do it right now.
I would
around
never do it right
that one. Hannah
I
hates it.
avoid that song at all costs. Like, I don't want to feel those emotions at all. No, thank you.
Oh, I love a song like that. I'm with you, Shane. Like, I feel that way about "Landslide" by Fleetwood Mac.
Mhm.
That same sort of like the impermanence of life song. I will dive head first into that.
Hannah, you should do Hannah Montana
No, I
because
was
that's
gonna
a
do.
well, yeah.
Yeah, you can do "Look Up" by Joy Aladikin.
What do you love about that song, Hannah?
It's like one of the first songs that came to mind when you said like a song that you go back to that's just like, oh, like I really like that song. It's like
Yeah.
uplifting and
Mhm.
like sweet and a little sad. I like that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to these. I will be going to Spotify immediately and sitting in my tears and my look up vibes.
Oh god.
You guys, thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
Thank you.
This has been great.
you bring so many gifts to the world, and I feel like that question we asked earlier, that like, why do you keep doing it? I mean, no pressure. You can opt out at any time, but you have brought so much to people, to our communities, to the world. You're doing so much cool stuff, and I'm so glad that you're here. So thank you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that. Thank you
Yeah.
both so much. This has been lovely and love all your deep questions.
Yeah, amazing questions.
All right, so you will have already accepted our second invitation. Great. Okay. All right.
Come back and it's gonna be
Yeah.
no holds barred.
Oh good.
Okay.
I'm so ready.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
You tell me when we're done, okay?
Done.
This podcast is edited and perfected by the most beautiful wizard and my favorite dude, Micah Jones.
For all the show notes and a transcript of today's episode, check out our Patreon, Scratch That Podcast. This is our hub. It's where you can join the conversation and be part of our community.
If today's episode resonated with you or made you think of someone, share it.
And if you want to support the pod and also make us glow inside, go give a 5-star review on Apple. That would be so lovely.
Thank you for being here, for listening, for being a part of this community.
We love you so much.